Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Just Being Kerubo, and specifically to this new segment, Saved and Sound Podcast. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back to learn, relearn, and get educated simply. If you're new here, karibu sana. Please remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that anytime I upload any new video, you'll be notified and you will know what's up in the family. With me today, I have an amazing lady, a good friend, and someone whose story is really inspiring to me personally. Priscilla Zoe. You're so much welcome. You're so much welcome.
You.
Let me allow her to introduce herself.
Okay.
Everything and anything about yourself, what you do, if you're a student or not, if you're working, go on and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm Priscilla Zoe, and I am a psychology major. I'm a student, definitely. And I'm youngin'. I'd love to believe so. And also, I do write. I'm a writer. I'm a blogger. I'm a podcast host too. And yeah, I'm a daughter, definitely. And yes.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you. I guess that's enough because I know you can really go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today's topic is quite so close to my heart because I'm also a psychology major, and this is something that is not really talked so much about, mostly in the Christian spaces, overcoming trauma, and specifically childhood trauma and finding triumph. We will major into this topic, and Priscilla will take us through her story and how she got to overcome childhood trauma, if at all she did, and how she has maneuvered life from the Christian perspective, that is. I believe she's born again. He didn't tell us that.
Yes.
Are you?
I am born again.
For sure.
Very much.
Yes, she is. I know that. And we're just going to get to hear her story. Please make sure you learn as much as you can. And also, if you have any questions and any topics you guys would want us to handle, if you have any guest in mind that you would want me to host in this podcast, you're so much free and welcome to give me the suggestions down in the comments below. Without wasting so much time, let's get into the conversation with Priscilla Zoe. So, Zoe, I don't know so much about you, but I know bits from your story.
Yeah.
I've watched your story from Lynn Googie. I've watched a little bit of your mom's story from Lynn Googie's channel as well.
Yeah.
But, when I was starting this podcast, I told myself I want someone who I'll be so much free to relate with and to ask as many questions as I want to. So I hope you're ready.
Yes,
and comfortable,
because I'm very much ready and comfortable.
Because you really have to spill the tea flavored.
Yeah,
I like my tea flavored
with some masala.
Exactly, that's it. So, Priscilla, do you mind telling us how your childhood was like, and if at all there were things that we can term as trauma triggers?
Yeah, actually, like the very first, my early childhood years, like how I remember them, they were actually okay, because I had an okay relationship with my parents. My dad was a great dad then, because I remember we used to play like, I don't know if you remember those helicopter toys that you pull and then they start flying around.
Yeah.
And he used to be a really cool dad then. And I remember even on Sundays after church, we'd like go to Pizza Inn, and then I go for those bouncing castles kind of thing. Then things started getting a little bit fishy or sketchy around when I was in class 1. Because now that's the first time I saw like my father being violent, like to my mom, and like it was really scary, because I remember that time I was crying and I was thinking my mom is gonna die, and I had mentioned even this part to Lynn the time we had our interview, but I was contemplating, if my mom were to die, how would my life be? Because in as much as I also loved my dad super much, I also really, really loved my
There was
mom.
that
you
soft
know,
spot,
for my mom. And I couldn't imagine my mom like going and leaving me here all alone. And even the kind of screams that she was making behind the door, they were like really concerning. So I remember when I was young, that time when during that incident, I was knocking on that door. Please open, don't kill mom, don't kill mom. And then like he opened like partly the door, and that time I hid a knife behind just in case, like if you were to like approach me or want to beat me, I like stab him so that I can get mom, and then we ran
so
out.
young.
And I was so young. Man, you know these things. I was just acting on instinct.
Yeah.
And then yeah, he opened the door. Then I got so scared because this guy is like a 6-foot man, you know, he's so tall. So, and then I could see my mom on the floor, and she's like, her back is bruised because he was whipping her, and it was so bad. And I just started crying. And then my mom was like, go. And then the door was shut. The next thing was like a blur, because I remember just calling my grandma with my house manager's phone. And my grandma came like in the speed of lightning. That time, she's in Zimmerman, we're in Doni, and
Your grandma from your mom's side.
yeah,
now.
from my mom's side. And that time superhighway was maybe not even being constructed, or it was about to be constructed. So there used to be a lot of traffic, but she was there in like light years, not light years, like closer than light years, like
So fast.
And then yeah, they talked and things were like resolved. But then that was the beginning of just bad things. That marked trauma years now, because after that incident, things just went downhill. Because I remember that's the time my mom got to know about my father's infidelity.
Just a moment before you get there,
Yeah.
there is something that has struck my mind when you said you were young and you were thinking of that defense, how you could like
Working on instinct.
You were working on instincts, and you were thinking on how you could help mom. From that incident, I don't know whether you can remember, from that incident, like, okay, were there previous times that you had maybe suspected dad or like had?
No.
That was like the
That
pop
was
of
the
it.
first time I had like heard about these things.
And that was like the beginning of
That
this
was the
trauma.
beginning, because now fights at home were becoming so prevalent.
Frequent.
And like I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, but there was even when I was super young, but I remember there was one time, you know, as a kid you think maybe it would be easier maybe if I wasn't here in the picture. So I think I was in class 1 or class 2, and I wanted to like kill myself.
Wow.
Because I was like, maybe it would be easier for mom to leave if I wasn't
If
here.
you're not in the picture.
Yeah, because I was the only child, and so I felt like I was the one maybe who was
Keeping
holding her
her there.
back. And I know for a young person to like think about all these things, I honestly don't even understand.
Class 2.
Like I was 6, 7 there, and I was like, I remember going to my mom's room. I remember she wasn't home, and also my dad wasn't home, and she had this like pills. I don't know even what they were for, honestly. But I was like, you know, I should just take all of them.
Wow.
Like I should just take all of them, and maybe I'll go and join Jesus, because I don't think this life is for me anymore. And mom would be happier if I wasn't
not in the
here.
picture.
She could easily leave. There's nothing tying her to now dad. They can both go separate ways, you know.
Wow.
And then yeah, now from that time things just became,
The trauma started building up. Can you like remember other incidences that like are so vivid in your mind? You know what trauma does is that it creates that picture in your mind, so that when you think of it, you see the picture.
Exactly.
So like, can you maybe
other instances
that built up the trauma?
I remember like one time they got into a really bad fight. I think it was in class 5, when I was in class 5, and they got so like they'd fight upstairs, and my mom would try and like neutralize the situation by just keeping it in the room,
so that it doesn't get to you.
Yeah, it doesn't get to me. And if she sees it's becoming too much, she just wants to walk out and just like give each other like breathing space, you know. So she'd come downstairs and come down. Then this time my father followed her all the way downstairs, and then he's like, what do you think you're doing? Where do you think you're going?
And you were there.
And I was there. I was busy watching soap operas, man.
You don't care about your mom in this state.
No, I was like, they had locked themselves in the room.
So you were not aware of what was going on.
And then when my mom came downstairs, she was just like, okay, I was concerned, but then she was like, don't ask me anything, just like ignore the situation. So I was reading her nonverbal cues, and I'm like, okay, I'll ask her about it once she's cooled down, you know.
Yeah.
But then now she's just like anajishika tama, she's just like pulling herself together, and like in less than a minute my dad is coming down the stairs. He's like, what do you think you're doing? Where do you think you're going? We need to resolve these things. Next thing, he's pushing her on the couch. And then I remember my mom was like, she broke her nail. It was so bad. And then like it reached a point where I had to stand in between them. Please don't hit mom, please don't hit mom. And then now my auntie, who was our house manager then, she intervened. Hey, that lady, I miss her so much. Because
I've heard you talk about her a lot, even in Lynn Gugi's interview.
I miss her so much. And the sad thing is, she left like when I was in Form 2, but she had to leave because at some point she thought if she continued staying here, my mom would pass. And
she would see it.
Yeah, and not even see it, she'd probably be blamed for it. Because I remember that time there were multiple cases of house helps getting away with fishy things in people's homes. So like she was like, I can't stay here because if Mama Zoe were to pass, I'll be be
part of the bad story.
Exactly. So she, at that now incident, she pushed my dad into the clock room, the guest's bathroom, and locked him inside. And that time was like, Zoe, get the key, open the door,
That's your house manager, your dad from the bathroom.
And until now my auntie was like, he has to first calm down, he needs to get over this anger, then atamfungulia. Hey, and then there were just many instances, like from the other one where he pushed my mom out of like a moving car, like hitting her head on the dashboard of the car, like.
So the pictures are so vivid in your mind. You can see them.
Like, it takes, actually, it's just therapy that's helped. But like, there were points in time I close my eyes and I see that. I remember it was even hard for me in high school because I was in day school from kindergarten to primary years. Then now going to high school, it was so hard because I used to feel like I was the one who'd protect my mom.
No, you're not there
I'm
to
not
protect
there
her.
to protect her. I'm not going to see her for months on end. And I was always scared because back in my high school, we used to have calling days because we were freshers, freshmen, or first form ones. Monos, yes. Yeah. And then like we had calling days, and I used to be scared that one of these calling days I'm going to be told my mom is gone.
Wow. So you used to live with that fear. Oh my God.
And even the dreams I'd have, like back in school, they're like a manifestation of my fear. Like, mom is going, mom is dying, mom is dead, dad has beaten her up to the point.
So all this was just being stored in your unconscious because if it manifests in dreams and the thoughts you would have, it was in your unconscious mind. Okay. I'm tempted to go ahead of my time and ask, where do you think was God in all this? Like, how were you relating at that point from your younghood? Now you're in high school. Where was God? How was your heart with God? Because you see, sometimes when we pass through these hurdles and the ups and downs, we're like, I'm just all alone, you know? And the weight of your stuff is that you are seeing someone who you really love going through so much pain from someone you also really love. I guess you love or loved your dad.
I do.
So there was this two love birds that you're seeing now. It's like there is a Swahili saying that says fali wawili wakipigana nyasi ndio inaumia, something like that. Like when two cows fight, it's the grass that gets hurt. So like you're seeing two people that you really love fighting, and you're getting really hurt, and then there is you don't know where your Christian life was founded from and how you were
Yeah.
thinking about God and all this. You can give us that.
My Christian life was mainly influenced by my mom.
Wow.
Because in as much as she was going through all these things, she made sure that I have a strong foundation in God.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's such a strong woman, man.
yeah. And like I remember there was a time where my main prayer point, it was for years though, my main prayer point every single time we'd go to church is that my dad would change.
Wow.
Like I just pray, like I remember I would go to, because we used to go to Karen, that was where we used to go to church, and I'd pray every single time, because he used to drop us to church and then he goes to
He used
work.
not to go to church.
He never used to go to church.
Wow.
He'd drop us to church, then he comes, picks us up after.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd pray that God, when he picks us up, may he treat mom so well. May he come maybe with flowers or just decide to take us out. And because he had this thing, I don't know if it was maybe some demonic trigger or something, but every time we'd come to church, he'd start being violent.
When you get home now.
When we actually, from picking us up from church, immediately he's driving on our way home. It's like he's high on something. He'd get so violent. He'd bring up things like kumchokora mamangu. Like he'd start up some funny things, and it reached a point, you know, where you get to a point like you just don't even want to argue. You don't have strength to argue. So my mom would just keep quiet, let him vent it out. Because if she were to talk, that's when now the slapping, the hitting, the driving like a madman would come in. So yeah, like my relationship with God was mainly God changed my dad. God changed my dad.
That was your prayer
That
every
was
time.
my prayer every single time. But then later on, I think when my mom realized that he's never gonna change, there was this, she told me this, and I think she also mentioned it in her interview. And that statement remains profound in my mind. There's one prayer that God can never answer, and that's the prayer of choice.
Oh, that's deep, actually.
There's one prayer God can never answer, and that's the prayer of choice. Because as human beings, he's accorded us free will to choose him, to do what's right, because we know what's good and what's right and what's bad and what's wrong.
Yeah.
So he'll never force himself on you.
Yeah.
He'll never force you to choose him. And unfortunately for my father, he never chose God, and he never chose us.
So you can't force God on him.
You can't force God on him. And I think I made peace with that, because I had to make peace with that so that I could start healing.
Yeah.
Because it reached a point where like you get so hurt and so damaged because of someone's choices. It can end up even reflecting or impacting the life your relationship with God. Because I remember there was a time I was even struggling in my faith, because I'm like, God, honestly, you're all powerful. How can you not change my father?
You're seeing me go through all this.
And then you've seen this like videos maybe on YouTube of like pastors who've prayed for marriages and marriages heal and people reconcile
and all that.
And I'm like, why can't you do that for me? Why can't my dad become the man that I want him to be, the father he can be, the husband he can be to my mom, and we become those happy homes,
families.
happy families? Because I know deep down in my heart, honestly speaking, if my father were to have chosen God, if my father were to have chosen us, we would have been I think my parents would have been a power couple.
Wow.
I think
if God was in
the picture, because honestly, my dad had terrible traits. Honestly, he was narcissistic, he was abusive, he was not all that great. But then he also had traits of someone who had a vision, someone who was a leader,
who can be a good man,
who could be
all the other
good
things
man.
Except now.
Exactly. When he was good, he could be. If he wanted to be good, he could be really good. But then he chose something different that really messed things up. Yeah.
You mentioned something that I want to take us there before we come back with the story and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about healing. And part of healing, we'll get into therapy and all that and drawing your strength and healing from God. But there is forgiveness. It is something mostly in the Christian faith and what we believe in. Forgiveness is central. Like, it is something that we strongly preach, we strongly encourage others, we strongly, talk about. How did you go about forgiveness and mostly forgiving your dad for all this trauma, for all this pain he caused you? Like, if at all you ever forgave him, did you ever forgive him, and how did you go about forgiveness? So that, I know it's central in healing and all that. How did you go about forgiveness?
I think one thing I've learned through all this, back before, when I was new to like maybe the Christian concepts and all, I used to think forgiveness is a one-touch thing. Like, I've forgiven you, and then we
bye.
Yeah, like
we're good.
But forgiveness is a process.
That's actually true.
Forgiveness is an intentional choice you have to make every single day.
Because the scar will always be there to remind you of the pain.
Exactly. Like, I had to remind myself. I used to tell my mom, back after, now the divorce was all happening and everything was just a little bit tense. And there was one time I was super angry with my dad. I couldn't even call him dad. I used to call him by his first name. So my mom was like, Zoe, he's still your father. In as much as he's done all these things to us.
Mom, that woman. Your mom is such a... I don't know.
Yeah.
I give her flowers. Your mom is such a mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
In as much as he's done everything incomprehensible and unforgivable to some, he's still your dad. And you'll never get another father.
You hold his blood.
Yeah, you hold his blood. He's yours. He's your dad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but how can I even forgive such a man? And she's like, do you want to forgive him? That time I was like, tutaonea mbele. But then I remember in 2020 when there was this whole hype of the world is ending.
Don't tell me that's what made you forgive you. Okay.
Yeah, Jesus is coming soon. Rapture is about to happen. And, well, it's about to happen anyway. But it is about to happen. But I remember she was like, so you could be left behind because you've not forgiven your father. So it was this time I started even having rapture dreams and I'm being left behind. It's like the Lord
because you're thinking about that specifically.
And I felt like the Lord is tugging in my heart. Let me just forgive him. So I'm like, okay, Mom, I think I'm ready to forgive Dad. And then she led me through a prayer and she was like, Lord Jesus, repeat after me.
Let me ask you before you... I'm sorry I've cut you short. I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
Was this after you have now left the house and your mom has left the marriage, or while she was there that she's leading you in the prayer and all that?
Like after my dad left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she led me through the prayer. I forgive him. I put him into your hands. Help me heal and move on and let go of the pain. And, well, it felt good at the moment. Then something happens and it triggers it. Like, I'm so angry. I get so pissed. Sometimes you're like, honestly, I don't think I can ever forgive this guy again. And then you have to remind yourself, I have chosen to forgive him. I have chosen to forgive him. And it's not for even him, but for you.
For you.
Because at some point I realized I was bleeding on people that did not cut me. I was reflecting that anger, that trauma, that pain
on other people,
on how I interacted even with other fellow men in my life. It was like, wow, I had to sit back and like analyze and have like that introspective moment. Okay, Priscilla, you're damaged, but you're not destroyed. However, you're damaged. We need to fix it.
Yeah.
And now it means you have to be super intentional on like sitting down and working through it, like always choosing forgiveness. Honestly, forgiveness the first step is choosing to forgive. And
Intentionally
then
now
intentionally
choosing that I will.
you choose to forgive. I'm like, I'm going to forgive this person. I choose to forgive this person. And also asking God to help you forgive. Because there are some things as a human being you can't forgive.
Yeah.
As a human being, it's like you're limited. But then God can forgive it all.
Yeah.
So it takes the Holy Spirit and it takes God
In you.
to like help you forgive, because
as you're speaking, I'm like reminded of this verse that says it is God in us who causes us to will and to do. So even the act of forgiveness and the act of doing good and the act of, just walking the Christian life in general, it is God who has caused us, because in our own power we can't. I'm not that good, in my own power. That's why like most people think Christians are prone to pain. They're like, you shouldn't react. And actually it is this bitterness that yields offense. It's even in the Bible that bitterness yields offense. And as a Christian, you'll go through these phases and you would want to forgive, but it is unless you invite God to your pain. You're like, true. God, I've opened this door. Like, you deal with it.
That's true.
I'm messed. I'm here. I'm messed, and I'm all this. I've invited you. Help me forgive. Help me, and all that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. You mentioned something about you projecting your pain on other people and how you viewed men and how you interacted and how you bled on people who didn't even hurt you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there was a point in time in my life I used to think all men are like my dad.
Okay.
And also, like, you see how a father is meant to be a mentor to his daughter. A father is meant to be an example, a pace setter to the expectations his daughter will have towards men in general. He used to tell me things like, oh, you know what, men can automatically address you.
Your dad now.
Yeah, those were like our dad-daughter talks. Very interesting conversations, honestly.
I know, right?
Like, men, when they look at you, they automatically undress you. No man wants to know you for who you are. You're just something they use maybe for casual sex.
Formed an image in your mind about men.
Yeah. And even with the example he was making or portraying, it was really terrible, because I remember there were instances where we are driving. Let's say my mom maybe is at work or she's at home and we're together, we're driving, and he'd like swing by like on the side of the road, and when he sees a very beautiful lady, he like rolls down the window and is like whistling, or is it catcalling? Yeah, catcalling, and I'm there. And I'm like, oh my God, Father, what are you doing? Don't you have a wife?
At your father, you're like in your heart, father. Yeah. You're supposed to be the father.
Yeah, don't you have a wife? And honestly, I think our relationship was more of like bro-sis relationship. So I would actually tell him, honestly, Dad, what are you doing?
Oh.
And then he's like, don't tell your mom.
He'll point it to you.
Like it was, honestly, we had a very interesting dynamic of a relationship.
It was not of that one of fearing him. Yeah. It was not that one of...
It wasn't like, I'm so scared of him. Okay, yes, those points in time I would be scared of him. But then it was like a very interesting, open relationship that was weird. Like, I wouldn't
not
say...
Not expected from a father-daughter relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's okay for you to be that open with me or your other male friends, but a father,
you're supposed to protect me.
There's
a standard. Yeah. And he really lowered that standard. And like, now even with how I would interact with men, I wouldn't trust them. Because I'm like, you have shown that even mom can't trust you. I can't trust you even to love mom. I can't trust even men based off the things that you've told me about, like how they are visual beings.
They undress you.
They undress you by seeing you. They don't have like really good intentions with you. When a man meets you and approaches you, he probably wants sex. Such things. And you're like, then if love really doesn't exist, or if true friendship doesn't exist, then let me just be solo. And I remember telling my mom, hey, Mom, honestly, I don't think I'll ever get married. I'm not gonna get married. And
because
then,
of the marriage that you had seen, which was supposed to be the standard.
Exactly. And also the thing is, that time Jane the Virgin ilikuwa imeshika. So one time she went to have her pap smear, like to check the she went to have a pap smear, and the doctor who was doing the pap smear was a little bit disoriented, and instead of doing the pap smear, she accidentally inseminated Jane with a viable sperm of someone else,
and Jane got pregnant.
And
That lie.
Yeah,
like from hell.
And she got pregnant with a rich guy's baby, and then now they had to like meet eventually, because now they realized that okay, this has just happened.
So so okay, we're not about to get into the movie, but now this is someone who got pregnant without engaging in
sex.
Okay, continue. How
and
did
give birth without engaging
did that affect you?
Well, because I learned about artificial insemination in that movie, I was like, if I want kids, that's the way to go. I don't need to do the deed. I don't need man. I'll just stay like that. I'll be the independent girl and live my career life and be the mom to my kids. Well, my mom has done a great job. My grandma did a great job. So
it's the man.
It's the man. The man.